Good morning, everyone, and welcome to People's Church. Whether this is your first time at People's Church or you come every Sunday or anywhere in between, I welcome you. My name is Laura McClellan, and I'm from the Sunday Services Committee. People's Church is a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association and part of a tradition of liberal religion. Here, our mission is to be a beloved community, embracing and serving our diverse world. This morning, we are joined by Simon Wolff. They are an earth-honoring ritualist and somatic practitioner based on Anishinaabe land known as Northern Michigan. This morning, they will facilitate an accessible somatic practice to help restore our bodies, minds, and spirits amidst this trying time. Welcome to all.
Hi, People's People. I have an announcement for us all this morning. On February 13th, which is 2 weeks from today, we will be opening up the Commons to greater in-person attendance at Sunday services. We will continue to broadcast our services on Zoom and upload videos to YouTube, so if that is the best and way for you to participate on Sunday mornings, or whenever it is you watch the YouTube videos, I invite you to continue to do that. Why are we making this shift? We have come to the realization, the regathering team and I, perhaps belatedly, that we are not going to be able to outwait COVID-19. It is with us. And we know that different people in our community are navigating this world, this new world differently, and have different tolerances for risk and different underlying health conditions and different risks they're taking in other parts of their lives. And we want to open up the possibility of in-person attendance for the people who feel like that is a risk that makes sense to them, and continue all of our remote and virtual options for people who that's not the right choice. And I hope you make the right choice for you and do not feel pressured to do anything that isn't that. We're trying to meet as many people where they are, but not push anybody into something that isn't right for them. If you decide to come to service in the Commons, we have some expectations that we expect you to meet. We expect you to be as fully vaccinated as it is possible for you to be. So if you're over 12, that is vaccinated and boosted. We expect you to wear a well-fitting mask. We expect you to remain distant from other people who are not in your household. We expect that if you get sick with COVID-19, within a few days after your attendance, you let us know. And we expect you to have no symptoms consistent with COVID-19 if you come. I had COVID-19 a few weeks ago, and as a person with 2 vaccinations and a booster shot, I had a runny nose. So we really ask that if you wake up on Sunday with a symptom and do not have an at-home test you can take, that you go to Zoom church instead. Let's err on the side of caution and keeping each other safe and well. The service, if you choose to come, will be different than what it was 2 years ago. There will be fewer people, obviously, but there will be no singing as a whole congregation. There will be no coffee. There will be no children in the Commons. Our RE classes, our children are going to their classrooms and staying there for the duration of the service. We also will be asking people who attend, rather than socializing in the hallways and in the foyer before the service, to be in the Commons. Gary Heckman has done some beautiful work on our ventilation system, and the Commons is the safest space in the older part of the building, especially in this season where we are not opening windows. Or, yeah. Okay. So, given all of that, if you want to attend, we ask that you sign up. We are allowing 84 households or COVID pods to be in the commons, which is what we can do based on our ventilation system and distancing. And so you can sign up using an rsvp.church web link, which is in our newsletter, which is in our website, which is on our weekly email. And we will be holding back some spaces for people who just show up on Sundays, because we know not everyone can navigate an online form. This is a lot. If you have questions about any of this, I invite you to look at the article that's in the church newsletter. And if you still have questions, please reach out to me or a member of our regathering team. That includes Chris Schluter, our office administrator, Marty Peter Sparling, Donna McClurkin, Gary Heckman, and Greg Feldmeyer. They have done beautiful work getting us this far, this safely. So People's People have met the challenge of this pandemic with such graciousness and creativity and flexibility and patience. And as we move into this new season of our pandemic life together, I invite you to continue being all of those things. There will be changes, we will learn things, we will adjust, and we will move forward as a community. Thank you.
Across the Distance by Laura Thompson. Across the distance, the light from within me shines, sending love to all. Across the distance, your light is fuel that warms me and helps to keep my own light burning. Together, we keep the flame of community burning bright. If you're lighting a chalice, having trouble with the positioning of the chalice here. There you go. Okay. If you're lighting a chalice at home, you are encouraged to type in the chat box, "A chalice is lit in," and then wherever you currently are located. All right. The words for this morning's offering come from John Saxon. This religious community exists by its mission, as a fire exists by burning. But a fire cannot burn without fuel. And it is the time, the energy, the imagination, the vision, the creativity, the compassion, the love, and the financial support of the members and friends of this community that fuels our mission to nurture and sustain a welcoming, inclusive, and diverse liberal religious community that transforms lives and serves the world. Your support, the free and generous support of each and every member and friend of this community, is what fuels this community and its mission. And without your support, the flame of justice, community, and love cannot burn brightly to warm ourselves and be a beacon in a world threatened by division and fear. The offering will now be received. Please join me in giving thanks for all that sustains us. The words can be found in the chat box. From the countless gifts we each have been given, gifts of life and love and sustenance, we bring these small portions to share in the works of love, which none of us can accomplish alone. Each Sunday, we take a moment to share with one another the joys and sorrows, concerns and milestones in our lives. If you would like to share, please type your message into the chat box and I will read your message aloud. If you would prefer not to share the details, you may type the word stone into the chat box and we will keep you in our thoughts. I'm going to pause the recording so that you have some measure of privacy.
Good morning, friends. So grateful to be with you all today. I'm going to read a poem called Eagle Poem by Joy Harjo, and I'm going to put it in the chat in case you want to read along with me. Eagle Poem. To pray, you open your whole self, to sky, to earth, to sun, to moon, to one whole voice that is you. And know there is more that you can't see, can't hear, can't know, except in moments steadily growing, and in languages that aren't always sound, but other circles of motion. Like eagle, that Sunday morning over Salt River, circled in blue sky, in wind, swept our hearts clean with sacred wings. We see you, we see ourselves, and know that we must take the utmost care and kindness in all things. Breathe in, knowing we are made of all this, and breathe, knowing we are truly blessed because we were born, and die soon within a true circle of motion, like eagle rounding out the morning inside us. We pray that it will be done in beauty, in beauty.
Great waters pour over me, for I am your child. Make me yours again. Great waters pour over me, for I am your child. Make me yours again. Great waters pour over me, for I am your child. Make me yours again.
Greetings, friends. This is E, and I'm so grateful again to be here with you all. I'm going to drop us in with an opening prayer. And this is an animist prayer, so an earth honoring prayer that I have come to use. And so I invite you to take what you like and leave the rest, and just be curious around how it lands for you. And we'll check in a little bit after this prayer about what I'm going to offer us today and kind of orient accordingly. So if you'd like, I love to take a hand to my heart just to help my awareness kind of become a little bit more heart-centered. So if that feels right for you, you can join me. And if that doesn't feel right for you, that's fine. And you can keep your eyes open if you'd like. I'm going to close mine, but I'm here with you, and you can keep your video on or off at any point during this time, and you can close your eyes if that feels right for you. You'll hear me use the word Shekinah, which is the Hebrew word for the divine feminine who dwells in my heart. And that's one of the ways that I name the divine, one of various ways that I identify the divine. So you can translate it to whatever works for you. Shekinah, spirit, source of life, pulsing presence, you of so many names and beyond all names. Thank you, thank you, thank you for the miracle of this aliveness, of these bodies, this breath, this day, this moment, and this Sunday morning service that we are gathered for today. Thank you to the first peoples of the places where we each are, you whose bones and bodies are the land, and whose land is where we find ourselves, where we tend, where we make our homes. We give such great thanks and respect to you. May our time together in prayer and practice be in service to collective healing and collective liberation. To the more than human world, our kin, you who animate the trees and the waters, the stones, the soils, the minerals and elements, the plants and animals, and all of the cosmos in this vast universe of which we are a part, we thank you for all the ways that you all are a source of so much goodness, so much medicine, so much magic, protection, and belonging as we find our way home to you, home to our own true nature. And to the bright and benevolent ancestors of each of us gathered this morning, thank you for being a source of so much belonging and love at our backs, even when we forget that you're there. Thank you for helping us to embody the blessings of our lineages and alchemize and transmute the burdens. We invite you to lean in to help hold this container for this prayer and this practice this morning so that it is resonant, potent, and is in the highest good of each of us and our purposes here in this life. Amen. Can you hear that sound? May it be so, and so it is. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Hello, Anu. I hope you got something from that prayer. I am grateful that Reverend Rachel invited me to share some practice with you this morning, prayerful practice. And I am going to share a couple of just kind of container components before we engage with some practice. The first is just that the reason why Reverend Rachel invited me here today is because we're living through a very difficult time. Hence the title of today's sermon/practice, Cultivating Embodied Resilience in Trying Times. And these certainly are trying times. And we don't know what's ahead, but it's safe to say that it'll be some degree of trying. Even if we have little moments and periods of relief. This is just the kind of the era that we're in, with all of the realities that we are facing as a species. So the intention for this practice with you all this morning is to help us all feel a little bit more resourced and a little bit more okay. And sometimes a little bit more okay is all we can hope for, and that's okay. That, like, a little bit goes a long way, and a little bit more okay is better than feeling stuck in despair, right? So there's no expectation that you perform anything today. Somatic practice just means that we're befriending our bodies and acknowledging that we have bodies and that our bodies are experiencing difficulty, stress, and collective trauma by way of this pandemic and everything else that we're facing. So the golden rule of somatic practice, as far as I'm concerned, is always honor yourself and your body. I invite you to practice radical consent with yourself. And that means listening for your own body's yes, no, or maybe, as far as how much you want to engage with the opportunities for practice, the invitations for practice. So nothing is obligatory. This is not one more experience where you have to be in an override, right? We are taught to perform. We are taught to, sit still and do as we're told. That is not what this section of our service is about today. So this is about being countercultural in a sense of listening to what our bodies actually need and want. If that means you want to disregard what I'm saying and get up and move around, that's great. That's what your body needs. Does that make sense? So radical consent and radical self-care. The other thing I want to invite is just, two pieces. I want to invite us to normalize grief, practice normalizing grief as a part of life in this time, and to offer compassion to our own and each other's grief. We live in a culture that, sort of lacks certain containers and rituals for grief. And as far as I have experienced, grief is not something we are meant to experience alone. Although we have to deal with our own emotions on our own in some ways, and we have to figure out what that looks like, we are also meant to gather in a village constellation and to grieve together and to be in community and to be able to belong to community and in community, whether we're experiencing joy or grief or anything in between. So your grief, if you feel grief or if grief starts to rise in you during our practice, it is welcome here. And you don't have to suppress it unless that feels necessary for you, for your own, just like managing of life. But hopefully you'll feel like a little bit more spaciousness and support to allow the energies, whatever you're feeling, to move and to flow and to integrate a little bit more. Somatic practice is about supporting the soma, which just means the body, to feel a little bit more welcome in whatever it's holding. Just briefly, the lineages that I've been trained in are somatic experiencing and generative somatics, and many, many years of yoga and meditation, and also anti-oppression and anti-racism facilitation, which informs a lot of my work as well. And I also am a ritualist, as as I think Laura said earlier. So I am here to facilitate kind of a hybrid of ritual practice and somatic practice. And the first thing I want to invite us to do, those of us who are on Zoom, is to just take a moment to listen in for what is the mood of your body in this moment. And for those of you that are in the sanctuary, you can check in and just share with yourself, what is the answer to that question? What is the mood of your body? If your body could speak, what would it say about its mood right now? And you can put that in the chat if you'd like. You don't have to, but if you'd like, you can put the mood of your body into the chat. And this is the first step of a somatic practice, is to just notice, what is our current baseline? Noticing from a place of curiosity and compassion. Anyone else want to share in the chat the mood of your body? And there's no right or wrong answer. It's okay if you're feeling wonderful and great. And it's okay if you're not. And it's okay if you're not sure. So we have tired, calm, relaxed, restless, open, achy, unable to hear me. Ooh, thank you for that feedback. Let's see if I can adjust that. I will try to speak up. Is this better, Mary? Where is Mary? Maybe others have been having a hard time hearing me as well. Distracted, uncertain, weighted, peace, pain-free, better. Okay, so you're hearing me a little bit better. Okay, I'll speak up. I think I was probably just not speaking up enough. All right, so thank you for sharing the mood of your body. And one of the sort of quickest ways to come back into our body, especially if we've experienced acute stress or if we're just feeling overwhelmed by the world, is to do a practice called orienting to positive resource through the senses. And it's a mindfulness practice that, you know, some of you may have already practiced before. But our senses, our sensory gateways, right? Our sense of sight, our sense of smell, our sense of taste, our sense of touch, our sense of hearing. These are often these are the gateways that we perceive the world through. And this is how we orient to safety or threat, to danger or safety, right? And so oftentimes when we have an accumulation of stress and perhaps trauma in our systems, we feel like we're stuck in a place of hypervigilance. Can anyone relate to that, when you've ever been stuck in a place of hypervigilance and you can't seem to ground or to feel oriented to like the reality, the actual like level of safety, because you just feel kind of unsafe all the time and kind of on edge, kind of like this operating up here. Yeah. So that's very common, right? And that's like, it makes a lot of sense because of everything that we have going on in our world and just the way that our culture is so fast paced, and the systems that we live inside of are not very concerned with healing, let's say. And so a lot of us are just kind of in survival mode a lot of times. So I say that with tons of compassion because it's like, it applies to myself as well. And I want to say that a lot of us also have a lot of privilege, right? And so like we have access to resources, perhaps we have access to supports of different types that not everybody has access to. And like the bigger kind of dominant culture affects all of us. And there's not a lot of, again, support for like what it means to actually heal in community. And that's why People's Church is so powerful, because that is what is able to happen here. And so I want to just invite us into this orienting practice as a way of actually orienting to positive resource as opposed to orienting to all the things that aren't right or that don't feel good. So just take a moment and start to look beyond your computer screen if you're on Zoom, and if you're in the sanctuary, just kind of look beyond the screen and start to get curious about what you can start to attune to through your eyes. So you don't have to immediately start looking around beyond what's in front of you, but just noticing like what are your eyes able to notice from a place of curiosity and kind of exploration that you might not have otherwise been noticing in this moment. Noticing what colors you're drawn to, noticing if you can see trees or other plants inside or outside of your space, noticing particular objects that feel resonant for you. I know for me, plants are a go-to for me because they just vibrate this vitality, and they help me to feel a little bit more resourced. And the muscles in the structure of our necks are meant to do this, right? We are designed to orient. This is why our necks do this, right? And of course, some of us have more mobility than others. I know my neck is often very tight and I can't actually orient very fully. And that's why I have to do chiropractic care and physical therapy and all the things. But see if you want to, if you feel like it, you can start to turn all the way back behind you, and you might have to twist your spine a little bit or just move your body so that you can look behind you. And this might seem silly because you're like, oh, well, I have a wall behind me. There's not a saber-toothed tiger back there. There's a wall, right? And the wall is relatively safe. However, your body, we have these bodies and they're really quite, animalistic. And we are these mammals, right? And so we can know in our heads that there's a wall behind us, or that, we can see in our Zoom screen that there's no one behind us. And yet when we look, it gives our animal body a chance to actually verify that that's true. Because there's only so much that our nervous systems can actually believe when it comes to our mind trying to convince our bodies of something. Does that make sense? So when we actually rotate, it's like, okay, now the body knows. And we see this in animals, right? Whether it's domesticated animals or wild animals, animals are never sitting straightforward looking at a screen for an extended period of time. In fact, I'm sure you've seen dogs and cats interacting with people who are on Zoom, and they don't even register the Zoom screen, right? It's like it doesn't even land for them, right? And that's because they're so in touch with their bodies. They're like, well, I can't smell anything. I can't really tell what's going on there. And so we too have to remember that, even though this technology is a beautiful gift that we can connect into, we have the opportunity to, during this pandemic time, to connect with each other through the screen, and also to stay connected to what is available to us in this moment, and how do we stay in touch with that, rather than, again, being in this kind of performative place of like, okay, I have to be still, I have to look straight ahead. What would it be like to be on Zoom if we could be a little bit more in tune with what our bodies are experiencing and orienting to positive resource in this way? What if we could normalize that? That's the question I'm sitting with. So just noticing, like, what are a couple things in your environment that you're aware of through your eyes, or even through your other senses, through your ears, through your nose, through your mouth, through your sense of touch, and put them in the chat if you're willing. So put them in the chat. What are one or two things that you're noticing? I'm noticing that there's these big fat snowflakes falling right now. And they're quite substantial. And even though I would love for the sun to be out, I'm glad that the snow is beautiful today. What are you noticing in this moment that helps you feel a little bit more in the present moment? A little bit more connected to the here and now? Okay, so there's some white noise from the washer. That can be soothing. Purple shadows on the snow from the trees. Beautiful. Nice noticing, gay. And Mary says, magnificent trees surrounded by snow. Josh says, I'm noticing a feeling of relaxation. GB Roz says, the taste of my tea. Excellent. Deer tracks in the snow, says Becky. The smell of matches and smoke from the candle, from Laura. And Richard says, a beautiful rough cut wooden door. Seeing my cat who just woke up, from Denise. Isn't it magical? I mean, this could be a poem, right? This could be a poem. This is a poem. And so, and all of this was happening even while we were, mostly focusing on the Zoom screen, and that's not a bad thing, but it's just to invite us to expand our awareness a little bit, right? To like what else is available in the present moment. And of course, during a spiritual service, it's probably not like a very stressful experience, relatively speaking. And so what would happen if we use this practice during a stressful experience? What happens is we actually regulate our nervous systems more, and we stay a little bit more resilient because we're orienting to positive resource instead of just the thing that's causing the stress. Does that make sense? So my invitation to you is to bring this into your life and to see if you can stay connected to your senses and to positive resource, and utilize that, in times that are potentially challenging. Even if that means like, you're going to the grocery store and it's a little bit more crowded than you'd like, and some people have masks and some people don't have masks, right? Or whatever the case may be. And it's like, how do you notice one or two things through your senses that helps you be a little bit more okay? And it's not to dismiss the stress of what we're living through. It's just to counteract it and to counterbalance it a little bit. So the other thing that I wanted to offer this morning is self-hold work. And self-holds are just where we take our own hands and we come into contact with our own body and offer support or containment through our hands as a way of helping our bodies to feel a little bit more held. So if you want, you can join me in this, and remembering to practice radical consent with yourself. So listening for your own body's yes, no, or maybe. And this is one of my favorite holds, is one hand on my heart and one hand on the back of my neck, kind of at the base of my skull. And just notice if this is something that you're trying this morning, notice how what it facilitates in your body. Does your breath expand a little bit more? Does your head and neck relax a little bit, not having to hold up against gravity? And especially during this time of isolation for many of us and distancing for some of us, maybe like less hugs. I think it's safe to say that we're all experiencing less hugs than usual. And maybe that's okay for some of us, and some of us are like really missing hugs. And so, some of us are experiencing touch deprivation during this pandemic. And so, of course, our own hands, it's different than experiencing consensual, loving touch from another person. But this is something that we can do with our own hands if that feels right for us. And it's not a big deal if it doesn't feel right for you. It's just something to notice. And your own attention, your own awareness is a form of touch. So even if you don't want to use your hands, you can just take your awareness to your heart center, or take your awareness to the back of your head, and notice if you can offer support just through your awareness. And I want to offer a couple more self-holds. There's this combination of the hand on the forehead and the other hand on the back of the neck or the back of the head. This is considered kind of like the first aid hold. So this is like, If you're feeling triggered or activated acutely, this is a really good one to come into because you're cupping or cradling the frontal brain and the brain stem at the same time. And it's a way of communicating to your nervous system that you're being held. You're acknowledging that there's the need for some support. So noticing how that feels. And then the other one I wanted to share with you is taking a hand to a cheek, or you could take a hand to both cheeks, the Home Alone posture. And so notice which side feels right for you. Right now for me, it's the right side wants more support. And I feel like I'm kind of intuitively just resting my head in my hand a little bit so I don't have to hold my head up quite as much. And one of the most prominent kind of important nerves in our nervous system, which is called the vagus nerve, it innervates up into our cheeks. And so we're actually creating support for our vagus nerve when we do this hold. Some of you might be getting sleepy because it is very restorative and down-regulating. I often like to say to my clients and students that, you know, these bodies that we have are the same bodies that we had when we were babies. Can you believe that? It's like obvious, like of course they are, but it's kind of remarkable, isn't it? These bodies that we have are the same bodies that we had when we were babies. And think about how tender a baby body is, right? It needs a lot of swaddling, a lot of cuddling, a lot of, you know, containment and support, right? A lot of times if a baby is upset, if you place a hand on the baby's belly or the chest or the head, right, it's a way of soothing the baby, right? Rocking the baby. All these things are very intuitive when a lot of us, you know, are in proximity to a baby. And yet we lose some of this with regard to ourselves. And of course we are adults now and we have a lot more functioning and a lot more kind of self-reliance than when we were babies. And yet our bodies still need a lot of attunement and a lot of support. And so it's like, how can we start to get in touch with some of that sort of innocence that's been maybe glossed over, you know, by way of living in this culture that is so disembodied? What would happen if we started to pay attention to what our bodies actually need, whether that's, you know, less screen time or more nature time or different kind of food, like, you know, more water. It's like going to the bathroom when we have to go to the bathroom. It seems kind of, you know, mundane, but it matters, right? How often do we override our body's needs in order to, you know, whatever it is, perform, get a task done, show up in a certain way? And so how do we start to actually listen to what our bodies need? And that in and of itself, friends, is a countercultural act of resistance to systems of oppression, because systems of oppression would like us to be disembodied, because when we're disembodied and we're not in touch with our bodies, we are not in touch with our humanity, and we're less likely to actually stand up for our values and live into our values. Is this making sense? So so I believe I probably have to come to a close soon. So I want to just offer you one more practice or one more hold. And this is a specific hold for grief. As I said earlier, and as I'm sure you can all relate, this is a time of so much grief and so much uncertainty. And so the lungs are the organ kind of most associated with grief. And that might make sense based on how a lot of us feel grief right here, right? In the heart, of course, and in the lungs. And so if you take your fingers and interlace them together like this, kind of like this butterfly hold, and then you can kind of create this little hold around the lungs, around the heart. You can press into the chest a little bit with the thumbs. And just notice how this feels. If it doesn't feel right for you, then you can just disregard it. But if it feels helpful for you, noticing if this containment this support of your own hands with your own body feels helpful for emotion, sensation, and breath to be able to flow and move a little bit more freely in the chest cavity. And one more layer I'd like to invite in, and you can do this or not, it's up to you, but we're gonna hum for just about a minute. And we're gonna see what happens when we layer in sound to this hold. So you're all on mute. You might have someone in your space with you, so you get to decide if you want to hum together or not. It's a very co-regulating experience for all of us, and especially if you're in the same space with someone. So just join me if you'd like. You'll hear my hum along with yours. Taking a deep breath if you want to join me, and then just making any humming sound that feels right for you. And just notice how that felt for you, whether you were humming along or not. And then I invite you to release this hold if you've been doing it, and just kind of take a little bit of a stretch, reaching your arms overhead, orienting to the space around you, and just noticing if your space looks or feels a little bit more vibrant, if you feel a little bit more present, just being curious, moving your body in any way that feels good, making any adjustments. And just noticing how all of this is, these are all practices that you can do while seated, and also many of them you can do while you're moving around, while you're standing, while you're laying down. And I want to just invite one final share out in the chat before I hand it back over to Laura. And so just curious if anyone in the chat wants to share how they're feeling, anything that they're noticing, any aha moments, any of this that's feeling particularly resonant for you this morning. Feel welcome to share in the chat anything that you would like to have witnessed. Thank you, Rochelle. So good to be with you as well. Julie says the heart and lung hold was comforting. That's how I experienced it as well. I'm so glad. Okay, so Sam says the last hold really had caused like a rush of emotions. Yeah, so interesting, right? That we need containment, we need support in order to actually emote, in order to actually feel our feelings, right? And to have energy, survival energy, fight, flight, freeze, appease, dissociate. We won't get into that too much today, but basically all these different energies that are inside of us that we need to survive, they get stuck, and we need containment for them to be discharged and to move out of us so that we can recalibrate. So just taking a moment to read through these. They're coming in. Mary says, really feeling centered. Yay. Humming is revitalizing. Yes. The humming, the sound is also super helpful for moving energy. Awesome. Thank you, Gay. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Janet and Richard. I know this is a little bit outside of the box for Sunday services, but I'm grateful for the opportunity to share some of my work with you all, and feel welcome to reach out to me if you want to chat about any of this further. If you have any questions, I'll put my email address in the chat, and with that, I will pass it back over to you, Laura. Thanks, everybody.
As we depart one from another, let our hearts be secure through every human season. Let our hearts be secure in seasons of anguish as in seasons of joy, in seasons of failure as in seasons of success, in seasons of uncertainty as in seasons of security. Let our hearts be secure in this dual reality. We are worthy recipients of love and support we can never earn, and we are worthy providers of love and support others cannot earn. Let our hearts be secure, for hearts know and understand, and will respond if invited in.